Welcome back to Plateau TV, the show where we try to help you maximize your viewing time, pick good things to watch. Jay, how are you doing?
Very good.
I waited for you to take a drink before you before I called on you.
I'm doing well, man.
Awesome. Are we drinking coffee tonight? Is that tea? Is that water?
Oh yeah, no, it's coffee. I haven't had any today yet, so I really just drink a lot of coffee for these streams to try to, be a little more chipper, I guess.
Yeah, sometimes I have a Red Bull. I don't have that tonight. I'm very excited about the main topic, so that's kind of what's got me fired up. Which, as a reminder, we are going to talk about the first 4 episodes of Lost. I have seen the series many times, at least 3 all the way through. Maybe it was 4. And Jay hasn't really seen it at all. I think maybe you had seen like these first 4 episodes before, or maybe the first 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think maybe just the first 2.
Okay. But so we kind of wanted to approach it from I've seen it, Jay hasn't seen it, and do the whole series and walk through it. So we'll get into that in just a little bit. But first, as we usually do, talk a little bit about some TV news. There was an article earlier today that is confirming something I had read many times before, but I don't think it had ever been expressly stated. When Stranger Things season 4 does eventually come out, it will not be the final season. Did you see this? Did you hear about this, Jay?
No.
They're sort of confirming that. They're saying something I have heard them say before, which is they sort of know how they're going to end it. And however they're doing that, it will not be in season 4. So at the very least, there will be a 5th season of Stranger Things. Does that excite you? We've talked about that show before.
I've only seen the first season. I've been meaning to get back into it. I want to watch it with my wife, and she hasn't seen any of it. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I haven't gotten back into it. But how do you feel about the season 3?
I think I've told this story on the show before, so it'll be brief. But and I'm sure you can relate to this, when we had my first child, my daughter, sort of like the hayride was over, right? Like we used to be able to, we used to be able to sit down and burn a whole weekend watching the first season of House of Cards or whatever it was. Lost, even maybe we might have done a whole weekend burning through like a season of Lost or something.
Exactly.
When we had our daughter, that kind of ended. We couldn't really do that like we used to do. But when we moved to Washington and my daughter was just about 1 year old, that was when the first season came out. It was like that. I forget. It was summer of 2016, I think.
Sounds right.
And I had just been reading news, like IGN had some articles, some of the various websites I read had articles about Stranger Things, and just that hey, here's kind of an interesting show. Like, do you like Goonies? Do you like Spielberg? Do you like 80s horror? Do you like an 80s vibe? Like, it's kind of, so it interested me enough that I was like, hey, I want to check this out. And Jay, and my wife loves 80s stuff. Like, we used to go see an 80s cover band in Virginia called the Leg Warmers.
Oh, really?
at the State Theater in Northern Virginia. So again, we like that, and we dug it. Like, the first episode, the pilot of Stranger Things, is awesome, and we stayed up late. Like, we burned through, I forget how many episodes were in that first season of Stranger Things, if it was 8 or 10 or whatever it was, but we watched like 4 or 5, which it had been a while since we, like, my wife was the one saying, like, oh, come on, let's do another one. Yeah. Usually I'm the one, like, oh, come on, don't go to sleep. Let's finish it. Yeah. Like, she was the one pulling us along. And I just thought, like, wow, this is a cool show. So we've been fans of that all. Again, that's a big preamble, maybe not for much, but it's just a way of saying that we like the show. We enjoy it. And we were excited when season 2 came out, really dug it. Season 3 we thought was a blast. I thought Maya Hawke daughter of Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman, was an awesome new character, and just, again, lots of new characters. They always find a way to sort of advance the story, twist the horror plot a little bit. We dug it. And, the end of the season, no spoilers, but, interesting developments, some tragic things, some life-changing things. So we're kind of waiting for season 4, which, like so many things, has gotten screwed up over this COVID pandemic. So I'm just excited to know that there's going to be a season 4 whenever they can finish it, and that at a very least, at the minimum, there'll be a 5th, perhaps final season. Or heck, maybe they'll do one of those things like they do sometimes, Jay, where they're like, 2 more seasons. Like, we're going to, and we'll do them back to back, and, we'll split them up or do some stupid thing. But so, yeah, we like it. It's one of those shows that, again, in the spirit of our program here, I recommend it. It's an entertaining show. You'll dig it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say they enjoy it quite a bit. It's just, one of those mental things I get when there's so many episodes that I have to go through. It's just a kind of, procrastinate on it for a little bit.
Stranger Things is, I hear you. I do. Because I'm trying to, honestly, Breaking Bad was like that for me. I actually came to Breaking Bad late. I think I hadn't seen Breaking Bad until either the 4th season was over or just about to end. And so and again, at that time, I think they had I don't think it was announced that the 5th season was the final one, but I remember there was all kinds of contract disputes or something with AMC. The end of the 4th season, it's insane to think this, given how big it's become and how popular it was for the network, but over money fights or contract fights, season 4 might have been the end of the show, which I suppose could have been an ending, but that would not have been the ending I would have wanted. The ending that we got is the one I wanted. That was a very good ending. That's one show like that. But Stranger Things has, because Breaking Bad seasons are only 12, 13 episodes. Stranger Things seasons are less than that. It's not even 10. It's 7 or 8. So if that helps, you can churn through those things pretty effectively.
I would almost prefer that. That's why I like the platform like Netflix, where it's not a network where you have to conform to, we need 24 episodes, by so-and-so time. I feel like the end product is probably a little bit better quality, because of that, because some shows on Netflix, they'll have 12 episodes in a season, then have 8 the next season. And, it's kind of like whatever works best for the show, I think, is what needs to happen. So,
well, I think that's why I like the streaming model. It seems to me like that Netflix kind of lets you do what you want to do to a point. They certainly have input, and they certainly do try and it's because they're looking at the data, right? Unlike traditional studios, they look at the data for how people watch stuff, and they kind of can figure out what's the maximum number of episodes that people like in a season, how much will they watch in a go. So there's a little bit of data work going into these decisions, but I do think creatively they give their makers a lot of freedom.
Yeah, good. I'm glad.
So that's good. I'm excited about that. Definitely encourage you and your wife to catch up on that. But you're a busy guy now. You have something to you have something to work on for at least the foreseeable future. The other thing I wanted to get your reaction to, because it's kind of it's a story that, in one hand, I think it's ridiculous, but on the other hand, it sort of gives me hope that the dream that just unknown people can make money and do stuff in Hollywood is possible. So there's a guy who, kind of as a joke, but he filmed it legit. He filmed kind of a trailer for a serious version of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Yeah. And by the way, this is slightly old news. I think we all had heard about this, but we didn't have a chance to talk about it last time. But that has been picked up to go to series as an actual Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, reboot, reimagining. I'm not sure the term exactly. And I don't know. Were you a fan of the original series on NBC? Did you watch that?
Of course.
Yeah. This is one of those things where I feel the need to quote Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park. You were so concerned with whether you could do it, you didn't think about if you should. I think I'm butchering that quote a little bit, but like I feel a little bit like, yes, could you take the premise of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and make it dramatic? Yeah, I think so. And in fact, I actually think there's probably a fair number of, again, not strictly about a kid from Philadelphia going to Bel-Air, but I think that kind of story has been told a few times.
Fish out of water type thing.
Yeah, fish out of water, kid, down on his luck, getting a better life. And, I don't know. I'm not sure this is really, is this what the people are looking for? Who's the audience for this, I guess, is my question.
It's going to be very interesting, to see how they handle a show like that in today's world, with the way people think about certain things. I don't know. It's I'm not going to watch it. If that amounts to anything.
I actually hear a Cameron from Obnoxious and Anonymous, also one of our fellow contributors on Region Free, and formerly the Sausage Factory. He made a comment that this is actually, I think, kind of, to me, that makes sense. Knight Rider was already super silly. I mean, sometimes it was serious. Like, I do remember there's one episode where, like, Michael gets, like, machine gunned and, like, Kit, like, protects him, and then he has to kind of come back and
cheesy.
The whole thing.
80s cheese.
But it was like an 80s drama for whatever that's worth, right? So to me, making the jump from, like, 80s, kind of the 80s version of drama to kind of like a parody send-up, or even just, again, like a 21 Jump Street comedy, that makes sense to me. Well, but it seems like going backwards, this was a comedy, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was a comedy, now you're going dramatic. I guess that's why I'm asking the question, who is the audience for this? Because I don't know that people who liked the series originally are going to like this new take. Maybe that's anecdotal. Maybe I'm speaking more about me, but
I mean, I don't think we would be the target audience for this. I don't know who is, but it's like Hawaii Five-0. They kind of did that with that, and I'm sure it's more comedic than the original show was. But it's like, who watches that show? And also, that show's been on for like a decade, So,
well, it's CBS loves their formulaic.
It's old people,
procedural.
Right? It has to be people older than us.
Yeah. I think that was a show my parents watched. I don't know if they still watch it or what, but man, that's a show that's, it's funny. That's organically, that this wasn't a piece of news I necessarily wanted to bring up, but the show, a former showrunner for Hawaii Five-0, he might have just been on the writing staff there, but he was the showrunner for the reboot of MacGyver, has been booted out of his position over allegations of like sexist behavior. I think there was some like actual like sexual shenanigans going on. And what it's done is actually shine a light on, well, first off, have you heard about this? Does this story like that? I forget the gentleman's name. I'll have to look it up here. But this, again, accusations that he's not acting well, shouldn't be acting, especially in the Me Too era. Not that you should behave badly in any era, but I think you catch my meaning. He was affiliated with Hawaii Five-0. Again, I can't recall if he was the showrunner or just one of the producers or a writer, but there's actually a tie to Lost here. The character who plays, the actor who plays Jin on Lost, it's Daniel Park. Oh man, that's gonna kill me if I'm not getting his name right. But he used to be on Hawaii Five-0 as, oh no, I'm mixing him up. Grace Park, who was from Battlestar Galactica, used to be on Hawaii Five-0, and it's Daniel something. See, this is what happens when I improvise a story. I can't
Daniel Day-Kim.
There you go. Thank you.
I looked it up.
They were on like the first 4 or 5 seasons of Hawaii Five-0, and then between seasons, randomly, they both left. And it was really very sudden. Like there was like plot lines they were in the middle of, and then like CBS had to kind of negotiate their exit and figure it out. And just the next season, it was just like, well, they left. You know, he took a position here, she's gone.
Yeah.
And it was always just very. It was kind of abrupt. But at the time, like I don't know, like we're talking, like it's a CBS procedural. I don't think people paid that much attention to it. Yeah. But in light of what's been alleged about this guy who was running MacGyver, he's been unseated. It sounds like that's why they left Hawaii Five-0. This guy was creating like a toxic work environment. By the way, I hate that turn of phrase. Like if you're gonna say something's wrong, describe it. Because like a toxic work environment to me could mean so many things. Frankly, it could just mean that it's really hard work and you don't like doing it, right? Or it could mean someone's like grabbing your ass or making racist or sexist comments. Yeah. You know, I don't know when you say toxic work environment, you need to tell me what your specific allegations are. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you say toxic work environment, I think of guys like pulling their stuff out in front of you and, stuff like that. Right. Totally inappropriate stuff. Like, we're talking about, some blue jokes or what,
Yeah. It's a little bit like the allegations that have been made against Joss Whedon and some of the producers of Justice League, the movie, because again, I'm improvising a story. I can't remember his name, but the actor who portrayed Cyborg has oddly enough changed the way he represented that movie. He was supporting it and talking very positively about Joss Whedon and the movie and everything, doing the job he's paid to do to promote it and everything, but recently came out and said that was a toxic work environment. And he didn't really similarly, he said that, toxic work environment. And the studio did respond, kind of a milquetoast response, kind of like, we're investigating, but, we don't really think this is accurate. We're not sure what he's talking about. And my theory at the time, and I'm starting to think my theory is accurate. If I'm proven wrong, I'm proven wrong. But nobody's talking facts, so all we can do is guess. My theory is Zack Snyder was making this movie originally. And again, it's going to be he actually is going to get to make it and put it on HBO Max. That's a whole other thing. But tragically, horrifically, his daughter committed suicide, and he left the production. He had to go and deal with some serious stuff, and that's fine. So Joss Whedon took the film over. There were a ton of reshoots, and plot lines changed, and even the color palette of the movie is different. It's a very, very fundamental, critical things were changed about the movie, and they released it, and we all know how that went. Not great. I still maintain that movie's worst sin is just being mediocre. I don't really think it's horrible, but it's just for a Justice League movie, for the amount of money they spent on it, I think it needs to be better than it was. In any case, what my worry about his accusations is that Joss Whedon did come in and change a bunch of Zack Snyder's stuff, right? And as a reminder to us all, because I'm concerned people online are forgetting this with as much as they're crying for this Snyder cut of the movie, Batman vs. Superman, it did make a lot of money, no mistaking that, but critically savaged. Like the DC brand was hurt by that movie. The DCEU brand was hurt by that movie, and Zack Snyder, Jay was hurt by that movie, and Zack Snyder had like this big plan. Like he made Man of Steel, he got to make Batman vs. Superman. Then it came out, And then he had a plan for, if you remember, if we all remember this, there was going to be 2 Justice Leagues. There was going to be like a Justice League Part 1 and a Justice League Part 2. There's going to be a Wonder Woman movie that like came out in between them. There was going to be Aquaman and The Flash and all these things. But then Batman vs. Superman came out, and again, there's video of poor Cole watching the damn thing, probably crying himself, crying in his theater seat. Not a great movie, okay? Again, I always try to see the positive in these movies. I do think there is some positive in that film, but Zack Snyder's vision and philosophy for these movies is not really in keeping with my theory of how this should go. But I don't make millions of dollars, so who am I? But my point in bringing that up is when Joss Whedon came in and like started changing this movie, I think he felt that he had the backing of the studio to take a production that was partially finished and adjust it to be, what he thought was the best movie to make, right? Again, the brand was in question. The DCEU was on the line, right? But coming back to the core argument here, I think the accusations against Joss Whedon, this toxic workplace environment, are creative. By the way, I don't know that, but I think the actor who played Cyborg, I wish I could remember his name. I like him. He played the role well. I've seen him in other things. He's good, but I think he spun up because he was hired by Zack Snyder. He talked about the creative vision with Zack Snyder. He worked out his role and the approach and everything he was going to do with Zack Snyder. Then Joss Whedon comes in and he's got a different philosophy on storytelling, a different way he wants to do the movie. And it was probably just like, yeah, I know you did that, but we're doing it this way now. And you're great and I respect your feedback, but this is how it's going to be. And I frankly think that's probably the core of what's going on here, right? Like, and again, I don't know. I wasn't on set. But it's not like I think Joss Whedon, is throwing out like racial epithets or something at the guy.
Yeah.
Or like, pinching Gal Gadot's ass or anything. Like, I think, well, given other accusations about Joss Whedon, that could be possible. But I don't know that. That's not, I don't know.
Being a tough guy to work for and being a sexual predator are completely different things. The only problem I really have with this whole Me Too movement is I feel like you're maybe a little too knee-jerk reaction. Like, I don't know if you heard of the comedian Chris D'Elia.
Yeah.
He has been pretty much canceled because of something with underage girls, which there's no proof of any of this. Like, I mean, let's wait till these people get convicted before we, they're being tried on Twitter,
Yeah.
And
Cole's actually in the chat giving us a little bit of background on this too, Jay. And by the way, and I'll pop it up here. What Cole's essentially saying here, I think, is perhaps a validation of what I think is happening. Is listen, Joss Whedon might have come in and said, like, guys, we can't use this. Like, and you got to remember how these Hollywood guys are. I mean, they're like football coaches. Think about when a franchise. Now, again, I know Zack Snyder wasn't fired, but just when a franchise fires a coach and brings in their new guy who's going to lead the franchise, sometimes he fires the whole coaching staff. He installs his system. He installs his people. He does it a different way. The player's got to learn a new rule book. I think, again, it's not a common thing for Hollywood movies. It's common enough. It's not like it hasn't happened before. But what happened with Justice League is not something that happens all the time, where one director does like 80% of a movie, and then something happens to him, or he has to leave, or he's fired, or whatever, and someone else comes in. But usually when that happens, directors, they puff their chests out. It's an ego thing. It's like they're the boss. And Joss Whedon, like, there are stories about the making of Avengers. And Robert Downey Jr., you want to talk about egos, Robert Downey Jr. has an ego, right? And you got to think from his history in the Marvel franchise leading up to Avengers, he's a guy who probably feels like he built the thing.
I'm sure he does.
he kind of did, by the way. The first Iron Man, you know, we've all heard these stories now. If you haven't heard the story, I'll be brief about it. But, you know, the script was not in great shape. He and Favreau were working on it. They edited it. A lot of the reasons that movie feels improvisational is, like, Favreau and Robert Downey Jr. were, like, spitballing lines on the set, coming up with the best way to get it done.
Right.
And hey, guess what? That movie was awesome. And it made a lot of money, and it basically launched the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, again, Iron Man 2, we can have a debate about that. But the point is, Robert Downey Jr. had sort of earned his cred, and he'd really only worked with Favreau up to that point. And now he's got to go be in this movie where not only is he not working with Favreau, but he's got to share the screen with like 4 other dudes and Scarlett and Joss Whedon, who clearly has a point of view about how he wants to tell this story. And I think it's either in the audio commentary or in some interviews that I've read or saw, but Joss Whedon talks about it, that like he and Robert Downey Jr. had to kind of work it out a little bit, right? But my point in saying that is just simply to say Joss Whedon clearly has a point of view when he's making a movie and he's writing a movie about what he wants to do. And so if he came in and said, listen, guys, like this movie needs to be different. Like, you know, if I'm putting my name on this movie, or, you know, whether or not I put my name on it or whoever's, you know, making it or whatever, like I got to have a say in how we do it. And so these things need to change. Like, but again, I wasn't there. Like, I don't know if Joss Whedon came in and said, this is shit. That doesn't seem like something he'd say based on everything I've ever seen and heard. But he could have. I don't know. Like, I work in an office with people. Well, I used to. I work on Zoom now. But the point is sometimes when you're in that environment, like that, when you're working with people with differing points of view and different ways of how to do things, that's how it goes. And I'm sorry, but when you're the director, the way it works in Hollywood, if you're the director, you're the boss, right? So anyway, by the way, I'm not trying to shit on the guy. He made these allegations, and that's fine. What I am kind of criticizing, though, is I'm tired, and I think he did it partially for, like, NDA reasons, right? Like, I don't think he's really supposed to be saying what he's saying, and it's based on the Twitter stuff. I think he's actually trying to work that out with lawyers so he can say more, but we've just seen it enough now, this toxic environment. Make your allegations. What did Joss Whedon do to you? How did he make you feel bad? Why was the environment toxic? Right? That's all I'm asking for. Because now Joss Whedon has been accused of something. It's this amorphous, undefined thing, but it's like the way it works, because to your point, Jay, Joss Whedon hasn't been convicted of anything. It's not like the WB came and took his money away for making the movie, but now everybody's looking at him like he did something wrong. Mm-hmm. And by the way, he might have, but there's nothing to judge that on other than toxic environment.
But listen to, like, you know William Friedkin on The Exorcist or Stanley Kubrick in The Shining. You know, that was a horrible environment to be in, but it made a good movie. You know, they're a director, and you know, it's like any other job, right? I mean, sometimes your boss chews you out when you screw up. You know, it's part of it. You gotta, hold your head up, and you deal with the fact that you're not performing to the level expected.
Right.
And that may just be like a generational thing. Like, we're dealing with people now that are adults that grew up in the everybody gets a trophy type of thing. Where I need my safe space because you're hurting my feelings right now. But that's kind of how life is. I
think did I send you that satire piece about the SAT changing the test answers?
I don't think so.
There was I think it was Babylon Bee or whoever it was, but it was basically like the SAT changing their test answers to A, B, C, D, or my truth.
No, you did send me that, yeah.
And I don't know, I thought that was funny. But yeah, I actually didn't mean to go down this rather significant rabbit hole here, but it's interesting. And by the way, it's TV related because at this point, the line between movies and TV, I'm not sure it even exists anymore, by the way. Mm-hmm. Because HBO Max is a streaming platform. They have to me, at this point, a movie is merely something that's longer than an hour and a half. Yeah. Which is funny because there are some movies that are shorter than that. But anyway, the Snyder cut, when it's done, will be on HBO Max. And I'm probably going to watch it just because I've been hearing about this damn thing for years now. I want to see it. But you know what's going to happen? Here's my prediction, Jay. And I'll mail you $1 if this is my bet. I'm betting $1 that the movie's going to come out and the reactions to it are going to be very similar to the reactions to Batman vs Superman. Because fundamentally, it's the same guy who made that movie making this movie. And all he's doing is making a continuation of the story he started in that film. Mm-hmm. Which was not the way he wanted to make a movie based around Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns kind of stuff. And there's so much imagery from that story in the movie. But you're sort of taking a story about Batman when he's old and then trying to adapt it to, this is the first time we meet the character in this new universe. And it's this kind of deconstructionist version of Batman. Where he's really dark, he's murdering people, all this other crap. And I just feel like you were trying to build a franchise. You can't start building a franchise by deconstructing all the characters. You need to get that because here's a good example of it. In Marvel, the Thor movies, you couldn't make Thor Ragnarok the first Thor movie. Yeah. Right? And and I'm not saying that movie was necessarily a deconstruction of the character, but in some ways, and I always butcher this guy's name, Taika Waititi?
Oh, yeah.
Waititi?
What we do in the shadows.
I'm sorry, man. I'm a big fan of yours. I don't mean to butcher your name, but you made Thor Ragnarok. It's not satire. It's not parody exactly. It's a little tongue in cheek, but he's kind of playing with these characters, right? Yeah. Rather than being the sort of self-serious, very sort of Shakespearean, he turned Thor Ragnarok as a comedy, as much as it is like a superhero movie or an action adventure film, right? But you couldn't make that first. You had to make the original Thor first, right? Yeah. And God, I wish someone had done something better with Thor 2. but Thor 3 had to be something other than the first film, right? So maybe Snyder's Batman vs Superman would have been good or better if it had been the second or third, film approaching this new franchise. But anyway, we don't need this is a whole other show to get into that.
I haven't seen a DC film since Batman versus Superman, so I'm mixed on Zack Snyder. I think Zack Snyder is the same way I feel about a lot of people. Is he needs to be a cinematographer, not a director, because he's got a great eye for stuff, but it's he's not able to pull it off.
I agree with that. He definitely has some beautiful. The imagery is beautiful, and even the way he again, there's actually some really beautiful, masterfully created shots in Batman vs Superman. But it's just kind of everything else. The movie can't just be. What I find funny, by the way, about it is, and I'm glad Cameron's not on because he hit the alarm button. But I think there's more similarity between Zack Snyder and someone like David Lynch than people want to admit. Because I think David Lynch makes beautiful films with beautiful imagery, beautiful music, but something happened to the guy in the past, 10 years, 20 years, where it's like he can really only like make beautiful imagery, but if he needs to build characters or write a story around that, he just doesn't know how. Right? And now he's got his chain gang of sycophants that are just going to say, oh, everything he does is wonderful and beautiful. Ironically, kind of like Snyder does. But I'm sorry, like I have to judge the whole piece. It can't just be beautiful pictures and music. It's got to be a story and have characters and these other things. Anyway.
I think he's a lot like Terrence Malick, someone like that, as far as having a good visual eye for things.
Yeah, I think that's a fair analogy. Well, anyway, listen, we could go down this road way further, but let's talk about something less depressing, something awesome. So, again, as we mentioned again at the top of the show, this Jay here, our trusty Jay the Stingray, over the past week since we last met, has watched the first 4 episodes of Lost, the incredible TV genre-changing series that was on ABC from 2004 to 2010. And we are going to watch the whole series in roughly, we'll see how that lines up, but roughly in 4 episode chunks, because those are, when you watch the DVDs or the Blu-rays rather, that's kind of how the episodes are chunked.
Is it? Okay.
I actually think it was on, because I was just looking at I'll get into this in just a second, but here you go, folks. This is, see that? There you go. This is the complete series set of Lost that came out in the summer after the series ended.
That's awesome.
In May 2010. It's all, again, I'll open that up and dig into it for a second. But when I was just sort of reviewing it and making sure I remembered everything that was in there, I was kind of just flipping through the guidebook and some of the other things. I think in season 3, there are some discs that actually have 5 episodes. I think we can, again, because I think you're watching it on Hulu? That's where you were doing it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can watch.
Yeah, I'm down for whatever. Whatever works out the best.
But again, I was just trying to figure out a structure, and I think 4 is not, in the modern day of streaming, I figure 4 in a week isn't hard to do.
No, not at all.
If it ever gets to be a challenge, maybe we'll just we'll rework it at that time. But so Jay has watched the first 4 episodes of Lost, which are the pilot episode, which is really on the Blu-rays and even on like Hulu and stuff, they split it in half. When it originally aired, it was a 2-hour premiere. Okay. But it counts as 2 episodes, but we'll talk about it as one entity. So it's the pilot, the second episode, or I suppose third episode, depending how you're defining that, Tabula Rasa, and the 4th episode, Walkabout, personal favorite. But before we do that, I wanted to geek out for a second and show this. So yes, this is the complete series set of Lost. I got it in summer of 2010, as I said, and it contains all 121 episodes of Lost. I think that's how many there are. It even includes, Jay, which when we get there, we'll have to figure out how you can watch it, but there is an epilogue of Lost. So Lost, the series ended in May 2010, but when you got either the season 6 Blu-ray or DVD set, or the complete series set as I have here, there was on the final disc a little bit more Lost. It's like a 15-minute, it basically is called epilogue. It's called The New Man in Charge. I'm not going to say anything more about it. I don't want to get into spoiler territory or anything, but there's 121 episodes of Lost, plus a little more.
I think
there's even more than that. I'm sorry, what, Jay?
Say it may be on YouTube here.
I think it is, actually. Don't look at it. Don't search for it. Don't do anything.
You'll
find stuff you don't want to
Watch
see.
it.
No. But actually, as I'm thinking about it, there actually is even more Lost that I've only seen like once or twice, even though I've watched the series a few times. I think it was either during season 3 or after season 3, ABC produced these like little mini episodes that kind of gave you some backstory and some additional situations with characters that you didn't see. I'm not sure if those are on. I'm not sure if those are on here.
They did dig into that. They did a similar thing with that show Heroes. We talked about before.
Yes. Yes.
They were really trying to incorporate the streaming aspect.
And by the way, that is one of the that's one of the reasons why the writer's strike of 2008 happened. Stuff like that, like as like the idea of streaming and internet content was becoming more prevalent. The writers in Hollywood were basically saying, yeah, we're producing this content for the studios and for the maker, but we're not really getting paid for it the way we think we should, right? It's like we're only getting paid for like our episode work or whatever, but like we're like writing other episodes and we're writing other things and we're doing other stuff that we want to be compensated for. That was kind of like, again, it was about a lot of things, but that was kind of one of the main things that
would be an interesting show to do. Shows that came out of that, or other writer strikes in the past, that shows that may not have existed otherwise, just because they kind of had them on the shelf already.
Like Terminator, the Fox Terminator show, which I very much like, by the way.
Yeah, I love it.
Is an example of a show that probably it lasted probably 2 seasons, but it might have only lasted 1 because it was one of those shows. It was on the shelf. And they kept it waiting in the wings, probably expecting that there was going to be a writer's strike. And it was one of the few, quote unquote, new things on the air that year when it was going on. But in any case, so in this set, you open it up, and then there is a guidebook to all of the episodes of the series, which I will use to describe the episodes that Jay has just watched.
Awesome.
Because I want to avoid spoilers with Jay, I don't want to talk in too much detail about everything in this box. Perhaps we can revisit it, but this is a game board for a game. In the pilot episode, John Locke is playing backgammon. This is not a backgammon board, of course, but it's a very old, perhaps precursor to backgammon. I don't know if that means anything. Hush, hush. And then there is the series itself. This has all 6 seasons of Lost in these little packages here. Again, you know what a Blu-ray case looks like, so I won't go into that.
Those are all Blu-ray?
Yeah, I have the Blu-ray set. Wow. That's right.
Man, I would ask you how much that costs, but I bet you probably don't want to answer.
At the time, well, actually, I wonder what I could get. If I tried to sell this thing now, I wonder what I could get. I think I paid at least $200 for this at the time. I suspect it's more expensive now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but in any case, the thing that's great about this set is it has mysteries in it, just like the show. So, first thing, this cover. You think, oh, what a nice cover to the box. Well, guess what? This moves. Wait, am I spinning at the right thing?
Oh, wow.
It's a secret panel, Jay. First off, it's a pretty cool graphic of the island, and it's it's got some texture to it. But you remove this panel, and what is this? A secret bonus disc. And I actually forget what's on here. I think it's like some additional special features or something, but it's cool. Like there's some extra stuff on here that you can watch. This actually might have Michael Giacchino, the composer of Lost, producing music for the final episode. Like there's a special featurette specifically about his score for the finale. And I think that's what's on here. But I honestly, I don't remember. But that's a secret. Well, we can talk about that later, Jay. Okay. And I don't know how this goes back together. I'll figure that out when we're off the air. But then in the set itself, in the sides, there are some special secret compartments like a letter, a handwritten letter that I don't want to talk too much about the contents of it, but there's a thing on the island where this makes sense that there'd be a handwritten letter for it. There is a maternity statue from, I think, the ancient Egyptians is what this is from. And then it unlocks. I actually don't remember what all this stuff does, to be honest. I figured out all the secrets a long time ago. I think I'd forgotten them.
I found it on Amazon for $459.
Yep, that's roughly double what I paid for it. Here are, see, I never actually even played the game, but these are black game pieces for the and so you've watched the pilot, Jay. So hold on. There are two sides, Jay. One is light, one is dark.
I was expecting him to be like, of course you're going to be the dark.
And then kind of the coolest thing about this is there's a black light. And I forget what I use this on, but like the black light like helps you find.
That's crazy.
Maybe the black light is how you figure out that that's a secret compartment here. Like,
that's
I don't think
really
I'll show. Yeah, it comes like a black light. They put mysteries in it.
They actually put some thought into that. I like that.
Yeah. And I think these are other game pieces too. I don't remember what they do exactly, but anyway, it's, again, as you can see, I've never played the game, but I think it's just, there's a lot of thought that went into this, and I just appreciate that. Like when we talk to, oh God, like I'm not remembering anyone's name today. The dude who works on all the Friday the 13th stuff, he wrote the...
Peter Bracke.
Peter Bracke, there we go. Like Peter Bracke does this kind of stuff for the franchise, which is just super, like, he's like there, like putting thought into like how you assemble a set, what are good special features, and that's just, first of all, what a cool job to have, and that's something that he does, and so I appreciate whoever it was that came up with this. So again, just more I thought it was just interesting to show you, and I can, when we finish the series, I can go back and I can show you that letter if you want me to, sure, and stuff like that. But on to the subject of the first 4 episodes of Lost, which you watched, Jay. So before we get your reaction, which that's kind of how I want to start, but I do want to just set some context for people. So the pilot episode of Lost aired on September 22nd, 2004. It was, at the time, the most expensive pilot ever made. It was $12 million. And it wouldn't be until Boardwalk Empire came out in, I think it's 2010, so 6 years later, that there was a more expensive pilot made. That one, I think, was $18 million. For the pilot, it had 17 million viewers. I'm sorry, almost 17 million. It was like 16.8 something.
Is that good? I don't even know.
That's a good point. It was 9th for the night.
Okay.
That was the ranking for the night. When you think about it in terms of like in TV terms now, 17 million is amazing.
Right.
And it's worth noting that Lost had gotten so popular over the course of its first season that the season 2 premiere, which again, we're not there yet, but it had like 23 million viewers, right? Like even like, so Game of Thrones, it really does deserve credit, because you got to think, for Game of Thrones, it's not like it was on network TV. Anybody could watch it. You had to sign up for a subscription to HBO to watch it. They would get like 9 million, 10 million viewers. So that's an achievement, because you had to pay to do it. So that's worth something, I think. But still, there were 7 million more people that watched the premiere of Lost, which again was kind of a show that came out of nowhere, right? Lloyd Braun which funny name. That's the name of a Seinfeld character.
Yeah.
he was an ABC executive, and ABC was having ratings trouble, trying to figure out how they could get ahead, how they could capitalize, find a way to differentiate themselves. And J.J. Abrams came to him with an idea, the idea really, I think, came from Survivor. Survivor had been big from CBS, but it's a reality show. So the idea was like, how can we kind of maybe take this concept and maybe do something dramatically? So J.J. Abrams went, back to his work shed. He hired a couple of writers, one of them being Damon Lindelof. And, they came up with this concept about these people who are in a plane crash on this mysterious island where, things are not what they seem. Kind of sounds like a classic TV show to me. But, it was the kind of show that was super expensive. It was filmed on location in Hawaii.
I was going to ask you that.
The whole series was, by the way.
That's where that money is.
That's right. Now there's a huge filming apparatus in Hawaii, by the way. All kind Hawaii Five-0 is filmed there now because there's a bunch of studio space. So they just moved in. But the Lloyd Braun was actually fired not long after all this went down because he spent $12 million on this pilot about a bunch of random people who, crash on an island. They're like, what is this, Gilligan's Island? What is this stupid thing that you paid all this money for? And, the people who made it, I don't think they really thought it was going to go anywhere, right? They threw a lot at it, but Damon Lindelof has been interviewed a few different times where he talks about how we filmed it, we made it, and we got kind of a series order for, I think it was, maybe the first 10. And when they got, a full 22, I think the first season actually had 24 episodes, by the way. When they got the full order of episodes, he was upset. He's like, how the hell are we going to do this week in and week out? I have to make more of this. And so there was just, again, a lot of interesting things. Damon Lindelof was with the show from the beginning. A gentleman named Carlton Cuse, who was a TV veteran. I think we talked about him last week. I don't need to go over this again, but he did not join Lost until around episode 8 or 9, maybe 10. So the ones that you watched, Jay, Carlton Cuse isn't involved with those at all. I mean, that's kind of the original writing staff, the original crew kind of putting all this together. So, Jay, what was your reaction to the first 4 episodes of Lost?
Well, real quick, I wanted to say that Lloyd Braun, the guy you're talking about, the character on Seinfeld, was named after him. I looked that up real quick. And and I was also looking to see if maybe JJ went off of Alias, because I was a big fan of Alias, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to watch Lost. It just never got into it. But Alias actually ended in 2006, and Lost started in 2004, right?
That's right.
So he was,
and it would have been filmed in the preceding months. I mean, I think some of the work on Lost, I think, actually started in 2003, technically. So yeah, definitely, wow. Alias was still humming.
So he had 2 big shows on at the same time. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But as far as Lost goes, I want to tell you, I was a little nervous about doing this with you because I was like, what if I don't like it? But unfortunately, that's not the case here. I actually really did get into it. Yeah, man, I really enjoyed it. I'm kind of infatuated with the characters. It's rare that I watch a show that I can remember so many characters' names. I think they did a really good job with, writing the characters out and then these first 4 episodes. And I was going to ask you, does it keep flashing back to their life before the plane crash, the whole show, the whole run?
I don't want to answer that too directly. The flashbacks are definitely part of the show for the long term. but they sometimes are, they sort of like break the formula sometimes. I guess it's fair to say, like, it's not all, like, sometimes maybe you haven't seen a character for a while and you might flash back to like what happened on the island, as opposed to like, oh, when they were 25, they went to a bar and met some weird guy, like. So, but yes, the flashbacks are part of the DNA of the show, like that format of storytelling.
I thought they revealed a good bit in the pilot, actually. I was like, man, y'all really, went for it. Do you find out? Well, this is going to be full spoilers for anyone watching this, by the way.
Yeah. At this point, like, let's be clear about that. Like, Jay hasn't seen it. I have several times. But as we're going through the show, like, we are watching it. So we are going to discuss the episodes that we watched, and we're going to talk, we're going to talk spoilers. And I'm going to do my damnedest to not spoil Jay. So I'm going to watch what I say, but we will talk about the things that happen in the episodes that we've just watched. So if you keep up with us, you can watch the show with us, and you'll be as aware of it as Jay is. So sorry, please continue, Jay.
The Kate being revealed as the prisoner on the plane, was that in episode 3?
Well, I think it was technically revealed at the end of the pilot.
Yeah,
it was one of the things, if I'm remembering that right.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, man, that's a pretty big thing we were wondering about, and they've already released it. But it was really cool because I didn't remember that that it was her, and it kind of caught me off guard because she seemed like one of the nicer characters.
Right.
I was going to say Jack really comes off like an asshole for the most part. I'm sure that's going to develop, and Sawyer is definitely an asshole. I like Locke a lot, of course, but episode 4 kind of blew me away with that's kind of Locke's episode, the Walkabout, because he's seems like a really domineering guy, kind of like an alpha. He knows how to do stuff, he knows how to get stuff done, and he was really nice. He got the kid's dog and let the dad. I'm not sure the actor's name, but I knew him from Oz.
I remember him from Oz and The Matrix, yeah.
Oh, The Matrix too, yeah. And so Locke was really interesting, the way they showed that, because it was totally unexpected there as well. And we can talk about that when we get there. But the pilot, who is briefly in one of the episodes, that guy was on Heroes. So I was trying to make all the Heroes connections because there's quite a few. Yeah,
he's it's one of those J.J. Abrams touchstones. That guy, that's his buddy. That's like I forget if he's his childhood friend or his college friend, but he's like friends with J.J. Abrams, and J.J. Abrams puts him in everything he does. So he was in Star Trek. Okay. I think he was only able to do like a voice in Star Trek. Oh yeah, he was Captain Kirk's like stepdad on the car phone when Kid Kirk stole the car in Star Trek 2009. But he was in Mission Impossible 3. He's in everything that J.J. Abrams does in one shape or form.
He did Mission Impossible 3?
I forget what his role was, but he was in it. And so, I mean, like, literally, even if he can't, like, maybe he's doing something else or whatever, like, J.J. Abrams will, like, put his picture up somewhere. It's just kind of a thing he does. It's like a gag that's always in his work. His name's escaping me. But he was in Star Wars: The Force Awakens. He was actually one of the pilots. I think it's funny. I can remember the pilot's name. I can't remember his name. The pilot was Snap Wexley. But yeah, he was one of the pilots. And
trying hard on those names, aren't they?
Yeah. But but he's definitely a mainstay, and he's a character actor that you would have seen in a lot of different things. Heroes being one of them. That's right.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. Looking forward to going forward. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot more mysteries to solve.
Yes. So what I'd like to do is I figured, so I want to get kind of your initial reaction. And then I think if we go, we'll talk about the episodes themselves a little bit. And, depending on what happens in these episodes, we don't have to dwell on them too long if we don't want to. But I thought let's juxtapose the description of the episode. We'll talk about it. I have just a couple questions for you as far as some things that popped out, maybe some ideas to seed in your mind. We'll take it from there. And then once we're done with those, we'll finish up and we'll talk about what are the next 4 episodes that you're going to be watching. And then we'll try and reconnect next week or whenever we can get back together. So, according to the official Lost Blu-ray full series set, the pilot is broken into 2 parts, like we talked about. I'll read both of these descriptions, but the pilot is broken up into part 1 and a part 2. During a routine trip from Sydney, Australia to Los Angeles, Oceanic Flight 815 is blown off course and crashes on a remote, deserted island. Convinced that rescue is coming soon, the surviving passengers set up camp on the beach and try to make the most of what they think will only be a short time on the island. One of the 48 survivors, Dr. Jack Shepard, suggests that they find the transceiver in the front of the plane so they can radio for help. But when a terrifying howl comes from the jungle, it becomes apparent that this is no ordinary island. So that's how part 1 of the pilot is described. Part 2, Jack, along with fellow passengers Charlie and Kate, returns to the beach camp with the transceiver they've found. Saeed, a former military communications officer, gets the transceiver working, but tells the others he can get better reception if they head to higher ground. When they get there, they pick up a mysterious broadcast, prompting Charlie to ask the question everybody has been thinking. Where are we? So, the pilot, what are some of your kind of thoughts about like the pilot? So one of the things, like Lost, for even the people that are highly critical of Lost, right? The pilot of Lost is widely regarded very positively as like they left it all on the field in terms of what they did in that pilot. Now, you don't have to have that same opinion, but I guess I'm just wondering, like, what about the pilot struck you in particular, if anything?
Well, it did a great job of, laying the road for what's to come. And I think it's kind of interesting. Like, it was really well done in that regard. I don't know. That's pretty much it. I really enjoyed the 2 episodes following more than the pilot itself.
Yeah.
But, it really lays out the mysteries. It's like we come across a polar bear. What the hell is a polar bear doing? And, where is this place? Because it's like a tropical island, right? I mean,
right.
Somewhere like close to the equator, you would imagine. And there's a polar bear here. So, and then we hear the noises, then it's like, man, when they first played those noises, it's like, you're like, what in the hell could that possibly be? And,
right.
Because it sounds like a howl sometimes, sounds like metal scraping on something. Also, it's like, they really wanted that to sound like something you never heard before.
Yeah, they definitely gave it a unique sound for sure. Mm-hmm. So what I did is so you mentioned the polar bear. I tried to write down what I thought were questions or mysteries that the pilot sets up. So the first thing, you sort of alluded to this one too. It's kind of the obvious one, which is, where is this island?
Yeah.
Why haven't they? And then I suppose that this could cover. Oh, it might make more sense after like episode 4 to ask the question, but like, why haven't they been found? When a plane crashes, aren't there tracking mechanisms and things? Right. Like, why is it that this plane wasn't found? Now, the pilot, the pilot of the plane, not the pilot episode, the pilot of the plane provides some clues, which frankly kind of beg more questions, but the pilot tells Jack and Kate and Charlie that the plane was off course like 1,000 miles when they realized it, and they had started turning back to go to Fiji when they hit turbulence and all hell broke loose. So that's kind of one part of why they haven't been found. But if that's a question you're wondering, that is a good one, because there perhaps is more to that.
Is it a real island that they say it is, or is it fictional? Well, I guess don't tell me.
Yeah, I was. I can't. You can ask those questions. I can't necessarily answer them, but it is a question. Where? Well. Let me say this: there is a question in there that I didn't write down. What is the island? Actually, is a fair question. I'm not going to answer it for you, but that is a fair question, one that I didn't explicitly call out. What is the monster in the jungle? Also, good question. Where did the polar bear come from? Again, we're on seemingly a tropical island. That's weird, right? What is John Locke's secret? Now, this is a question that the pilot sets up that Walkabout, I think, answers. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then what happened to the French woman? Do you think I captured? Are there other questions you had, Jay? Anything I'm missing there?
What is the monster? Did you say that one?
I did say what is the monster. Yep.
I mean, if at first you're wondering who was the prisoner.
That's true. Okay, that's fair enough. That is a mystery that they do set up. They just happen to resolve it within the same episode.
So I'm looking at Fiji on an island here. So it's like Fiji's like west of Australia, like almost right on the equator. So
yeah,
cool. So that's what it looks like. That's what that island kind of looks like. Is something that you would picture out there, like Castaway,
Yeah. And so the only other thing that I would note is that there's kind of a general question, and the subsequent episodes start exploring it. It's not a question you would necessarily wonder, but they start answering it for you anyway, which is, why were all these characters, all these people in Australia to begin with?
Yeah.
Because again, a lot of these characters, in fact, the majority of the characters are American. They're not everybody. Obviously, Saeed is Iraqi. Sun and Jin are Korean. Claire is Australian, so she's native to Australia.
Oh, is she?
I don't think the show said that, but I don't think I'm betraying anything by.
Kate is Canadian.
I'm sorry.
Kate is
Canadian.
That's
right. That's funny. Yes, Kate says she's Canadian.
Yeah.
That's correct. I take that for what it's worth. Well, it's interesting, and I guess I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit to Tabula Rasa, but Kate says she's Canadian, and I believe she also says she's a vegetarian.
Yeah.
But worth noting, in Tabula Rasa, which is the first, in the pilot episode, there are flashbacks, but they're not quite like the flashbacks that the series have that start with episode 3. They're all kind of flashbacks to what happened on the airplane, what happened during the crash, kind of some basic stuff like that, different perspectives of the characters on the plane. Whereas Tabula Rasa, the third episode, basically is a Kate flashback-centric episode. So Kate gets the first flashback episode, and it's about what she was doing in Australia and maybe beginning to explore the fact that she was a fugitive. I think I actually just lost my train of thought as I was trying to explain there. But yeah, Tabula Rasa is the first flashback episode about Kate. And, oh, I'm sorry. In Tabula Rasa, she's eating bacon and eggs. That's what I was going to say.
Right.
So she told Jack she's a vegetarian.
Oh, good point. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
But she's eating bacon and eggs when what's that guy's name? Ray. I think that was his name. Ray's the Australian farmer. He gives her bacon and eggs, and she's eating them. Why would Kate lie about this? I don't know. Is that just maybe a mistake? A mistake the writers or the makers of the show made? I don't know. But maybe Kate likes to lie. I don't know. But so that's a decent enough. That's a decent enough transit. Well, so before we leave the pilot, Jay, any final thoughts on the pilot of Lost? Anything that we haven't already discussed either?
Why is Jack Shepherd so jaded? I mean, I guess that's the question we're going to find out eventually, right?
Interesting. Why is Jack so jaded? It's interesting that you perceive him as jaded. I'm curious why you say that.
Well, it may have been in Walkabout when they burned the fuselage. He wasn't a part of the memorial service. Did not want to be any part of the memorial service when.
Well, that's true.
We get the Claire when Claire was asking him if he could lead it. He was like, "I don't want any. That's not me, man." So.
What I think, we can talk about this just a tiny bit. So for one, I would say there's perhaps some answers, and there's absolutely more development of his character coming. But I'm not sure I personally perceive that as him being jaded. More that maybe he's just not a spiritual person.
It's like an atheist or something.
Yeah, like he's an atheist or an agnostic, but he just so Jack's a doctor. We know that about him. He's focused. What can he put his hands on to fix or solve, or he's very much about, in the moment, how can I make this better? How can I solve the next problem?
Right.
Whereas, doing a memorial service for people in the fuselage, I think he might, it's he's not comfortable with doing a memorial service. And B, it could just be that he doesn't see the utility in it. We have to get rid of those bodies because they're attracting wildlife that's causing us danger. That's the extent to which Jack processes that.
Well, being a doctor, his bedside manner is terrible. But I understand he's the go-to guy. He's, shit's going down. He's like, we got to do this, this, and this. You guys need to help me with this. You do this, you do that. Which, I guess you need somebody to jump in and take charge in a situation like that. But it kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit at first, and I don't know if that's going to change or not. But it is what it is.
Yeah, no, it's fair. And again, see, this is why it's fun watching with you. You're seeing things that I don't think about it that way necessarily, but I don't. You're certainly not wrong. It's an interesting read you have.
That was my first note I wrote down, which I think I've already mentioned on my notes. But I said initially, Jack comes off like a prick. That was my exact note.
I want to react to that, but I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah.
So, Tabula Rasa, episode 3. Jack discovers that the injured man he has been trying to save is a U.S. Marshal. Don't trust her. She's dangerous, the Marshal mutters repeatedly. When Jack asks him who she is, the Marshal shows him a picture of Kate, the woman Jack's been spending a lot of time with.
Yeah.
On another part of the island, single father Michael questions his son about a conversation he had with another passenger, Locke. So the third episode of Tabula Rasa, like we said, is Kate-centric. It's both about why Kate was in Australia, as well as kind of, the next stage of, they've been on the, I think it's day 3. I think it's days 3 and 4, if I remember correctly, that they're on the island. And there's a few things going on there. As far as, so in Tabula Rasa, were there any characters that jumped out at you? Anybody that you didn't sort of observe in the pilot? And by the way, when I asked this question, like I had noted before, it doesn't have to be positive. It might be like, man, Sawyer's a real prick. Or it might be, I don't know, Michael's being stupid with his son. Or again, I'm not trying to feed you info. I'm just trying to get a reaction to like who stood out for you in a particular episode.
What episode is the boar hunt? Is that 4?
That would be 4.
Okay. Well, I'll save that.
So we're not there yet. And by the way, if nobody jumped out to you, Jay, I think that's okay too. That, these are early episodes in a series. The characters are still defining themselves.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they definitely did. We haven't mentioned Hurley yet. And I want to ask you.
We haven't mentioned Hurley yet. What do you think of Hurley?
Does Hurley stay fat the whole time? Because if that's the case, this show is bullshit.
You would not be the first viewer to make that comment or that joke, however you mean it. We have to keep watching, but yeah. But Hurley's an interesting character. So like Hurley, and I actually, just an observation that I think I can make safely, even just about the first few episodes. It seems like Hurley comes at things like, so Jack is super intense and focused, and he's the doctor, and he's like rushing into the jungle and stuff. Hurley kind of, Hurley collected all the plane food, was, distributing to everybody.
Right.
Hurley's he's got kind of a, what levity we've encountered so far has kind of come through Hurley and Charlie. So it's just something to observe about Hurley. Like everybody kind of starts to take a role on the island, or have, their characters start to become defined.
I mean, Hurley definitely comes across as a nice guy, maybe kind of a timid, nervous, shy. He passes out with the blood in this episode, I believe.
Yeah.
And but I mean, definitely, is a nice, genuinely nice guy.
So I wrote down a quote because every time I watch the show, I wrote it down because I always forget it. And then when I watch it again, I always go, oh man, that is so cool. In Tabula Rasa, Jack is trying to find medicine to help treat the marshal. Which, again, in the description, he's badly injured. He's got a piece of shrapnel in his side. He has a head wound. So he's in the fuselage, like digging through people's, carry-ons and stuff, trying to find, just meds. He bumps into Sawyer in the fuselage, and they have a debate. Sawyer's basically going through there, building a stash, finding their. I think he might take some of their medicine, but like really, he's looking for like food and booze, and some of them have porn, like and stuff. But there's an exchange between Jack and Sawyer that I think tells you everything you need to know about Sawyer, which is Sawyer says, "You're not looking at the big picture, Doc. You're still back in civilization." Yeah. Jack says, "Yeah? Where are you?" Sawyer says, "Me? I'm in the wild."
I mean,
I can't do that line justice like Josh Holloway can, by the way, but I love, like, that makes me laugh now when I watch it. It's just a good one.
Love that quote, but some of the writing does kind of come off as a bit pretentious, especially with Sawyer. I don't know if some of that was ad-libbed or not, but some of the stuff he says is like, gosh, man, y'all really worked to get that one. But, I understand it's trying to establish his character and everything, but, it's, some of it came, kind of like, you really like played with that one before you decided on, what you went with in the final draft.
Oh, you felt like it sounded written. It didn't seem like organic dialogue.
And that may not be the case, but
okay. That's unfortunate. I like that line a lot, but we hear it differently. That's fine.
Yeah. No, I mean, I did enjoy it, but it just like, come on, you guys are really trying, but it is what it is.
I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say that, get used to that. Sawyer is a very unique character, and I hope he's an enjoy. Even if you don't like him, I think you kind of can enjoy him.
Right? I'm really interested in his, a backstory, because Sawyer is a guy I can really relate to. Like, I feel like I would be like Sawyer in that situation. Like, did you ever watch the first season of The Walking Dead, or the first and second or whatever? Whenever Shane showed up, like Shane showed up, and at first he came across like an asshole. But the more I watched the show, the more I kind of identified with Shane, because like when you're put in a situation like that, the most important thing is to protect you and your family. So it's kind of like fuck everybody else, but what I've got right here, and all bets are off. Society's gone. It's strongest wins in this situation, survival of the fittest, I guess.
Yeah.
So I can kind of relate to him in that regard. So I am looking forward to Sawyer's reveal of where he came from.
And that may be coming soon. I don't know. But I really only had one question from Tabula Rasa, and I don't know if this is just because I've seen it so many times. There might be things I'm missing that don't just jump out as a question, but what did Kate do? Like, when we find her in, like, the backstory of her in Australia, she is already on the run. Like, the marshal was already chasing her. What was her crime? Like, that is a question.
The original crime, not when she killed the old man.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Yeah, she does other things, but what was her original crime that set her, like, what happened that set her on this path? So that's a question.
And why does he only have one arm? We never get that answer.
Well, that's true. Well, I thought I thought he said that. I thought he said it was I thought he said it was like a farm accident.
Maybe I missed it. That's
kind of what I remember. That. I thought I remember that.
Good old boy like that.
Yeah. But those are that. So that was the only question I had from that, and I just wanted to point out that Sawyer quote just because I love it. But it's so actually I do want to. Something just before we get to Walkabout, I'll post something that Cameron just said, which I think this is a great philosophy, Cameron. Thank you for sharing it. I said last week, and I've said it other times, I've said it before, I certainly have some criticisms of Lost, right? A perfect show, it is not. If you're looking for a perfect show, go watch Breaking Bad, which is about as perfect as it gets. Even The Wire is pretty perfect, although season 5, but it's a question of, I think, they get far more right than they get wrong. And I think I've shared with you, too, that philosophy I have, Jay, of like, so, you can forgive a lot, like, if it's cool. Like, sure. if they do something and it's really cool, or it makes you laugh, or it makes you feel something, like, you can sort of forgive if it maybe cheats something. And I'm not saying that necessarily happened, but I'm just saying, like, I have that kind of feeling about Lost, where it's like, it gets so much right and is so impactful, at least to me. Like, whatever criticisms I may have of it, it's easy for me to overlook them because I just enjoy the journey. So I'm sorry.
But it's your favorite show, right? So, I mean, you're going to have criticism.
I'm biased, obviously. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So clearly,
my favorite shows I've got, criticisms of as well. So, except maybe Seinfeld. That may be one that I'll say is perfect all the way through. But
the first season, even.
Well, I mean, yeah.
I'd say before Elaine showed up, it's not like it wasn't funny, but clearly they hadn't quite figured themselves out yet. But by the time Elaine gets there, and I think Elaine's first episode is the pony. is the I hate anyone who had a pony.
It takes that long? Wow.
Yeah, she's not in it right away. And honestly, she's sort of introduced. She almost seems more like a guest star than like a main part of the cast. And I think they eventually realized like how good she is and how awesome that character is. But yeah, Elaine was not part of season 1, and she doesn't show up until I'm not even sure if it's the first episode of season 2. I'd have to look at it. But sorry, maybe I'm quibbling over a detail that doesn't even matter. You're right. Seinfeld is about as close to perfect as it gets. I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, comedy is so subjective. I mean,
Yeah. Well, again, no, I love Seinfeld, start to finish. I really, again, even that first season, I like it. I'm just saying, when you start throwing around terms like perfect, like, okay, perfect has a definition, has a meaning.
Yeah, I can forgive some of that, I guess. You know, again,
that's why when I use perfect as it pertains to like Breaking Bad, I really do mean it. Like, I'm not sure I would do anything differently with Breaking Bad. Like, it's pretty darn good, right? I mean, at least to me. I don't know.
Yeah, man, I gotta say, I mean, I know this is kind of a hot take, but I was really kind of underwhelmed by the finale of the show.
Really?
I know a lot of people
about that. I don't remember that take.
Yeah, it's and again, I haven't watched it since I saw it, the one time, so maybe I'll feel differently about it now. But I don't know. It was so much build up, so much anticipation. Did you remember that was back when they were splitting they split the last season into almost
so
two different
finale,
seasons.
Yeah, it got like delayed even further. Yeah,
I really hate that stuff. And cliffhanger, and then now it ends. But it may have just been the anticipation that I felt that way.
That's possible. A lot of meta build. That's true, and it's fair to say too that you would not be alone in thinking that Breaking Bad had reached its creative peak with the episode Ozymandias, which is, spoiler alert, where the whole thing comes crashing down, which is like 2 episodes before the finale. So, I think there are people who would probably say, and I actually think I probably agree, Ozymandias might be like the best episode of the show. The best episode of the show is certainly not the finale, and I don't think that's. I don't think that, but it's fair. That's fair. Anyway, this isn't. Let's stay on the task. No. It's. Hey, I'll talk about Breaking Bad too. That's cool. So before we move on, let's check anything about Tabula Rasa.
I don't believe so. It was just interesting to see Kate's backstory and all of that, because it ends, the finale ends with her. You see that it was her wearing the cuffs,
right?
And then it hits you with the, how that happened, and it was very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next comes episode 4, Walkabout, and Walkabout is. There's a little bit to unpack with this episode from like a meta perspective, but I would say I believe I am not alone in saying that I thought Lost was interesting. Like the pilot grabbed me. I really wanted to. I was like, oh, this is interesting. I want to kind of find out what's going on, and I watched it. But it was not until Walkabout that I like sat up in my chair and was like, what? And like I was hooked.
Yeah.
So
I messaged you last night when I saw it.
Yeah, in fact, that's true. Yeah, I can confirm. Like I got just a message from Jay last night that said he was in a wheelchair. Yes, and what I think is funny about it, I can give my perspective as someone who's seen it a number of times now. Knowing that he's in the wheelchair when you watch that episode, it's so funny, like how visually they do everything they can without being super obvious about it to hide the wheelchair. Like he's always sitting.
Yes.
He's all like even when he's like at his desk, the camera is oriented in such a way that like you can't see like the arms of the wheelchair and stuff. And
that's exactly what I thought when they revealed it. I was thinking about those scenes. I was like, man, they did a good job with that because it didn't cross my mind whatsoever. I was totally off guard with that one.
Yes. Sorry. Let's keep up with how we do. Sorry, no, it's no problem. Walkabout, and by the way, just of interest because Cameron's in the chat and he's made a couple Buffy references. Walkabout was written by David Fury. An not infamous, that's a famous, a popular Buffy and Angel writer, David Fury, wrote Walkabout. A series of flashbacks reveals a secret that Locke has kept hidden from the other passengers. Meanwhile, the bodies inside the plane need to be disposed of, but how? Jack decides the most effective way of doing so, but it's grisly. When the castaways realize that the food supply is running out, Locke has a suggestion. So, and what that description, that's sort of covering everything. So we jumped right to the to the end of the episode. The secret that Locke. So already, again, I would just point out to the people who say Locke never answered or Lost never answered any mysteries. Already the pilot introduced a mystery about Locke. Very mysterious. He talks to Walt and says, "Walt, do you want to know a secret?" In Walkabout, we learn basically what Locke's secret is. That before he got on the plane, or while he was on the plane, he was in a wheelchair. Locke was paralyzed. Now, on the island, all of a sudden Locke's walking around.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I'll suspend disbelief there. I'll suspend disbelief because I don't think that's possible. But I realize this is fiction.
Yes.
Just because if only because I've had to deal with this, a little bit lately. My father-in-law recently had one of his legs amputated, and he's been like bedridden for quite a while and has no muscle mass in his legs. He can't do anything. Like there's like nothing there or in his leg.
There's a cheat for that, I think, because I was doing a little bit of research yesterday because I knew we were going to try and do this today. In the scene where Locke is in his room in his apartment, where he's just sitting on the bed, talking to the sex phone worker that he's just sort of not talking about sex and trying to use as like a therapist and pretend as his girlfriend. On the wall, there is maybe it's not on the wall, but maybe like situated next to the bed. But there's basically a medical device in the room that if you're not looking for it and you don't know what it is, like you wouldn't know or care, but it's basically like a muscle machine to kind of help with exactly the problem you're talking about.
So it's like one of those things that like makes the muscle contract and
yes,
gotcha.
Yes, to keep his leg, like to keep the leg muscle.
I'm glad you told me that.
So it's a minor detail, and again, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not going to say anything further. I'm not sure that detail would necessarily be super important, but it's just a detail that's there that I think is interesting in light of that point. And so in terms of the mysteries introduced in Walkabout, I wrote down 2. I'd love to get your opinion and see if there's anything else that jumped out at you. But who is Helen? Because that's the woman he was talking to on the phone was not actually Helen, but he's calling her Helen. And then in the jungle, when he got knocked over by the boar, he referred to Kate as Helen while he was disoriented. So just a guy watching a show here, but seems like Helen is someone of significance to John. Who is she? Second question, how was John paralyzed? So I really only had 2 for Walkabout. I think that was all there really were, but was there anything that you were interested to know?
I just had something on the tip of my tongue and I forgot it. Yeah, I know there are some. Oh, I was going to say they did a really good job with the reveal of him in the wheelchair. Skipping ahead a little bit because he's talking to this Australian guy that is like the tour leader of the Walkabout or whatever. They're about to get on the bus to go on this thing, and he's like, "I want to go. I paid for it." And they're like, "No, with your condition." And we're all like, "What condition? What the hell? What does he have that we don't know about yet?"
Yeah,
it kind of pans out. And you see,
and then he wheeled the way he you're right. The way that the camera, like the way the staging of that scene is so powerful because it's like the guy walks out from behind the desk and Locke shoots back, and it's like at that moment, like you see, he shoots back and spins at you, like at us, the audience.
Yeah,
so powerful, and he's screaming, he's in tears. The music, so. That's actually so I don't want to take us off Walkabout just yet, but I'll put a pin in the music for just a second.
Cameron poses a good question to another mystery in this episode. What happened when the mysterious fourth John? Yeah.
Thank you. I forgot that was in this episode. I couldn't remember if this was this episode or a different episode. Yes, good question, Cameron. There's a moment in the episode where the monster, the thing in the jungle that we don't really know what it is walking towards Locke. And there's kind of a camera shot where you're sort of, it seems like you're the point of view of whatever that thing is looking down at Locke, and Locke sees it and has a very kind of interested, terrified, amazed. What, I don't know, his reaction, you could interpret it many ways, but we don't ever see it. So what did Locke see? Thank you, Cameron, for that one.
And then he shows up with the boar,
Right. And then he shows up covered in blood with the boar. So it's, it's interesting. And I should note, I said this last week, I'm just a fan of Terry O'Quinn as an actor. Like, this is a guy who has a really extensive acting career going back, before the 80s, I think, right? 70s, 80s, he's an older dude. He's been in a lot of different things, but rarely has he ever been like the star. And he's not necessarily the star of Lost, but he's a major character on Lost. But again, an entire episode was just devoted to him, and his acting chops are undeniable. So that's another reason why I think I like the character of Locke. Is it's sort of inextricably tied to, I like the actor Terry O'Quinn.
Yeah,
just a fantastic actor.
Yeah, Cameron says stepfather.
That's right. He was, that's true. So he was a horror movie in the 80s. He was the star of Stepfather and Stepfather 2. That's right. He was a major character on Atlas. He was a character we talked last week. He was in the X-Files movie in a bit part, but a significant one. He was he was another a guest star on a later season episode of the X-Files, as well as an early season episode of the X-Files. So obviously, again, but my point is, this guy has been acting a long time. He's one of those reliable character actors who's now getting an opportunity to frontline a major show, and he blows it out of the water.
There's 118 credit to his name, so
geez,
he's a working actor.
Absolutely. And by the way, actually, this is worth saying. So I'm definitely hammering. I think Terry O'Quinn is a fantastic actor, but honestly, I don't think there's a weak link in this cast, right? I don't know what your opinion is of it yet. We haven't really seen everybody in detail. We've seen a little bit of Claire.
Yeah.
Right. We haven't quite seen enough where maybe you can't make a judgment on her acting, but Claire's decent. She's pretty good. Even Walt, even that actor, Malcolm David Kelly, is a pretty good little actor, right? With what he's been given so far in the 4 episodes you've seen.
Oh, is that the son?
Yeah, sorry, that's Michael's son. That's right.
Okay.
But it's just a point of they got themselves a heck of a cast. So this is, if you weren't aware, this was really Evangeline Lilly's first role.
Yeah, you told me that.
She had appeared in some things before. She was in the background of a scene in Smallville. She actually might have been in the background of a scene in Jason Goes to Hell, because that also was filmed in Vancouver, like Smallville was. I actually think she might actually be a high school student or something in the background of Freddy vs. Jason, if I'm not mistaken. But so Cameron, the ever opinionated Cameron, thinks that the brother and sister, he's referring to Boone and Shannon, they are weak.
I agree.
I'm not sure going off of the first, remember what we're doing here, Cameron. Maybe you're bringing your entire perspective of seeing everything. I would say going off of the first 4 episodes, I don't know that I would make that judgment. They're acting like young, dumb people, to which case I think they're acting pretty accurately and pretty on point.
It's not so much fun to watch them bicker all the time, but But again, establishing their characters, and I imagine that Shannon, is that her name? Yeah, Shannon probably has a turn at some point. Her character is going to turn into less of a horrible person. I guess I'm just going to guess that because see, again, this is one of the things I was telling you. I was trying to not dive too deep because I didn't want to know how long people lived on the island. I don't want to know who's going to die. So I'm just kind of looking at general stuff. But, it'll tell you, this many episodes or whatever.
When I talk about the journey of Lost, like how I said last week, I did like the end of Lost. You know, again, I know there's a segment out there of people who bitch and moan about the ending, but I did like the ending. And yet I still do really appreciate Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse, like towards the end of the show, kind of made the comment, you know, it's like we think that the journey of Lost is really the most satisfying part of it. Mm-hmm. And that, you know, the ending, like we're trying to make it good, but like you guys are going to really remember what it was like watching with your friends, trying to figure out these mysteries, like with your buddies online or in message boards, or, you know, like that's the stuff you're going to remember. And so what I would say to you is do the best you can to avoid like reading stuff. Because honestly, I think the act of like discovering this stuff, experiencing it, it's you'll thank me. Because I'll just tell you, I stupidly spoiled myself for the third season finale. There was like a spoiler guy out there. I don't know, maybe some guy from the production or some ABC guy. I don't know that they ever found out who it was exactly, but some dude kind of came out and he had like a description of the episode. And I was so hardcore, like I was always reading theories and stuff, and I found it and I read it. And when I read it, I was like, holy crap. I was like, could this be true? And then the episode aired and it was. Wow. And I just felt horrible. Like I was watching with my best friend and my girlfriend, now wife. They got to experience it for the first time. So I got to, it's not like it was ruined entirely because I got to watch them be like, what?
But I'm the same way, man. I'm a big no spoilers guy. Like I get pissed if people spoil movies from like 20 years ago. You know, everybody's like, it's been out for 3 months. Come on, why haven't you seen it yet?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, come on, man, give me a break here. Like that's why I always like to drop spoiler tags and stuff that we do, because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody else.
Right.
Because I hate when people do it to me. Like
that's right.
Han Solo died is like my screen name, you know. I hate that stuff.
I would note, so Jamie's in the chat. Thanks for watching, Jamie. Good to see you on here. If you do want to watch Lost, don't bail out. We've already talked about some spoilers here. If you want to watch it, first of all, you can still catch up with us. We're not going super fast. Like 4 episodes a week, 4 every 2 weeks. So it's eminently reasonable. Although, you know, I know you've got a family and kids too, so it's tough. But I think 4 a week is fine. Make the time, damn it. Before we finish, Cameron asked the question, where are we watching this? Lost is on IMDb TV with commercials. I don't know what kind of package that you have, Jay, but I have Hulu without commercials. That's where I would watch this if I were you. I have actually been watching my Blu-rays because I wanted to get the maximum visual quality on my new 77-inch OLED CX LG TV, which, by the way, these discs really do look amazing. So Jay's watching it on Hulu. Do you have the commercial one or the one without commercial?
No commercials. It's the same as you. I hate commercials.
Yeah.
It's a pet peeve.
Yeah, it is annoying too. Sometimes if I really don't want to pay for something, like I don't mind it, but yeah, commercials, especially watching Lost, I'll tell you, there are just some commercial breaks where I'm just like, come on.
Yeah.
But in any case, so I guess what I would say about Walkabout, just as a final thought, like, so I already sort of proposed my questions, but it, other than the fact that there seems to be something kind of big and strange out in the jungle, Walkabout is the first episode that is kind of perhaps suggesting something extraordinary happening. Like, so, you know, John Locke was a guy in a wheelchair who now walks. You know, is it plausible that people survived a plane crash like the one they were in?
That's a good point.
I guess it's plausible, but that seems kind of extreme, right? But again, now there's something walking around the jungle that's really weird and making odd noises. Now we know there's a guy on the plane who something happened to him where he didn't walk, now he walks. Like, Walkabout was the first episode that maybe suggests there's something else happening here. I don't want to spoil you. I don't want to lead you on, but I just wanted to note that I think no spoilers to say. It's plainly in the episode, but that's something else that I would observe for you. Any final thoughts on Walkabout, Jay?
Well, real quick, I wanted to mention, I think like islands generally don't have like huge apex predators, like a giant polar bear. I don't think would exist on something like an island. I think they tend to be smaller. Because I mean, something that's able to sustain itself means there's food on this island for it to eat, some sort of meat available. Maybe he's eating the boars or whatever. But I'm guessing the island's a lot bigger than we've seen so far.
It's
where did they crash? Because they're really just chilling. Well, I mean, where on the island?
I mean, like it seems like they really. It's like it kind of seems like it crashed close enough to the beach because then it the fuselage then kind of worked through the jungle. Because remember, the front of the plane they had to kind of hike to it, whereas the fuselage was on the beach.
Right.
So I think just judging from everything you've seen so far. It seems to make sense that the plane somehow kind of crashed, near the over the area near the beach and broke apart or something like that.
Do you know on that island where that is though? Like on the picture you have there.
Oh, I'm not. I would have to look at a different.
I was just curious.
I actually think I do know.
Yeah, I figured.
But I have to orient myself because there is like a map of the island that's out there. Like there was some like I forget who he was. There was some guy who made like a really good map of the island. Don't you find it?
I know. That's what I'm saying. I want to Google this stuff because that's what I do with stuff. I look it up, but I don't want to spoil it for myself. Like whenever I'm watching shows, I'm constantly looking stuff up, usually reading the trivia and. My wife's like, "You're always on your phone when we watch stuff too." I'm like, "I'm looking at what we're watching. Like, I'm so invested.
I gotta understand.
I'm so invested. I'm researching what we're watching right now. It's you're playing Candy Crush.
If I'm remembering this right, Jay, I think I can talk in terms of directions. Like, I think they crashed on like the south of the island.
Okay.
I think that I can say that. Yeah, I think they're on like the south side. I don't know how. In fact, wait, is there like a directional on this? I don't think there is.
Oh, okay. But it's not laid out like that.
Yeah, it's kind of just and again, I don't want to get too into it, but you can tell that this is kind of stylized to look like an ancient kind of carving or something. Yeah, so there's a little bit that goes into that I'm not going to talk about with you. I think they're on the south of the island.
Cool.
So final thoughts on Walkabout, if any.
So Walkabout, I think the main thing for me was just looking at John Locke's character in a different light because he comes across, like I said earlier, as such a dominant guy, and then you go and see what his life was like whoever they got to play his boss, the 20-something-year-old D-bag,
Randy,
they did a great job with that guy because, man, he is out of the gate, you ate his guts, right?
Yeah.
He's then you find out he's doing it to a disabled person, which is that much worse. You'll never do anything, you POS,
Yeah.
This guy, his dad probably owns the company or some shit, that's why he's there because oh gosh, it's got these sideburns, his hair, man, it's so easy to dislike,
All right, so here's a show note I'm going to be making. Jay hates Randy. Okay.
I do, man. I feel like I knew that guy. It's like a frat guy,
Oh God, yeah.
He comes out and he's like, crushing the puss, bro, and I don't know. I just like that guy.
I think we've all met a few Randys in our life to be sure. Like, and it's like he goes out of his way to be shitty to Locke too, which is I hate that crap.
Yeah.
But
the guy's on his lunch break.
Right. Like, why are you messing with the guy? And what I do think is what I would just sort of note is just an interesting juxtaposition is just that. So yes, your impression of Locke before Walkabout, and it's not like this necessarily changes because, this is kind of who Locke is now, it seems. But in those flashbacks, you kind of had a guy who was kind of a sad dude, seemingly not very confident, seemingly not very happy, and that his transformation that you've seen might be more than just physical, right? Or at the very least, just his transformation has helped him. Something's happened to this man here, which is interesting. It's something that I think is playing on the screen.
We've got some supernatural stuff going on.
It's just there's just some interesting stuff, and Walkabout is, I think if you were to take just a general survey of Lost fans, I think they would tell you Walkabout is their favorite episode,
really,
or among their favorites. It's just a truly powerful piece of television.
It is.
So deep, like I said, I wanted to sort of point the way for you, some things to think about going forward. And this is good. I did this too because you. And I made a note. Sorry, before I get to that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the series music. So the composer for Lost, Michael, I always butcher his name, but it's Michael Giacchino. It's a name you should recognize, Jay, and maybe you already do, but Lost helped put this guy on the map because he did music for Rogue One. He does music for the Jurassic World movies. He just his star has risen in Hollywood for the quality of the work that he turned in on Lost. And I would just like to say that one of my favorite things about Lost is the music. To my mind, the music is sort of what, obviously the fact that they film in Hawaii and it's such a beautiful, picturesque setting like that's obviously, that defines the show too. But for me, the music is kind of what makes Lost feel like something more than TV. It feels cinematic. It feels emotional. It feels powerful. It doesn't feel like it just came off some guy's synthesizer or something. You know what I mean? And here's a detail that you will find fascinating, I think. So Michael Giacchino conducts an orchestra that scores Lost. They are using instruments built from the plane's wreckage.
Seriously? Wow.
Yes. Now, not the entire orchestra, but I think you've probably heard it already, but sometimes you'll hear this kind of string pull, this bow. That's a terrible impersonation of the string pull, but just listen to the music and you will hear some musical touches that I think to your own ear, maybe you're not a musical, I don't know if you play any instruments or anything, but you'll hear it and you'll think oh, that's like a stringed instrument, but it has a quality you don't quite recognize. And it's because the string is made from cabling from the airplane. Basically what happened when they made Lost, they flew that 747 to Hawaii. And then they ripped it apart to make the show. They flew it there and then they, ripped the fuselage apart and the thing. I mean, they used a real plane to do it. But since they had the plane all ripped apart, somebody got, I don't know if it was Michael Giacchino or if it was someone else's idea. That much I don't remember. I'll have to look into it. But someone had the idea hey, maybe we could use some of these parts and the sounds we'd get from them, maybe we could use them musically. And so there's a very cool quality that the music in Lost has because some of it is made using those kind of custom.
That is a really interesting creative choice.
Yeah.
I've never heard
and
of it.
And it's not I don't think the thing is too, it's not obnoxious. It's not it's some goofy thing. It's very tastefully, very stylistically done, I think. So be on just as something to listen for, because the music only gets better on Lost. The music's been pretty good. Walkabout, to me, premieres Locke's theme. right? So the music you hear at the end, the big sweeping score as Locke is telling the Walkabout guide, "Don't tell me what I can't do, damn it." Like that music, that's Locke's theme. And so listen for that. You'll hear that music, recur throughout the show. I should note too, just rewinding back to Tabula Rasa, I believe Kate's theme makes its entrance in that. So listen for, I actually find Kate's theme to be one they play a lot, because Kate's theme seems to be a motif that they use sometimes with Kate and Jack or Kate and Sawyer. But anyway, just something to listen for. But that's, again, we could talk all day about the music, and particularly as we go throughout the season, I'll keep bringing that up. But the series, I'll keep bringing it up because it's very good. I would say, and I'm going to keep it general right now, but I want to see if maybe you'll catch it. Pay attention to numbers, and there's already been some numbers talked about on the show, and I'll give you some clues here. Even their plane seats, like what seat was Jack sitting in?
I don't remember.
There was and that's fine.
Pay attention. Okay.
That's fine. There was a number, like Kate. Do you remember there was not a ransom? There was a reward for turning in Kate. Do you happen to remember what that was?
30,000? Oh, 25,000?
23,000. So I'm not gonna guide you anymore. Just pay attention to numbers. Maybe you may find something there.
Could be a Michael Jordan reference in there.
And then the other thing would be, so I've already said, so I think this is probably self-evident, but the flashbacks are part of the DNA of the show. I would note, though, don't just think that the flashbacks are like just filler to inform us on the character. I would say pay attention to those flashbacks. There could be interesting details that you see in them. And that's all I'm going to say. That's as much guidance on that I'm going to give you, but I would just note that maybe pay attention to those and keep your eyes open.
Okay.
Okay. I think, unless you have any other final thoughts, Jay?
No, I think we covered it pretty well. Okay.
So then I think what I'll do is, just before we go, thank you, of course, for watching with me. This is fun. This helps me relive the show, Jay. Since I've already seen it a bunch of times, I don't get to enjoy it the same way that I did the first time. I'm living through you, so this is fun. As I said before, we are doing 4 episodes at a clip for the next show. And again, this is kind of, Jay has a family, he's got kids. I have a family, I have kids. We're going to try and do this weekly to the best of our ability, but Jay might be busy. Things might happen, but we're going to try and resync next week with the next 4 episodes of Lost, which will be White Rabbit, House of the Rising Sun, The Moth, and Confidence Man. So those would be the next 4 episodes of Lost, and Jay is going to watch them. I'm going to refresh myself on them, maybe make some notes, just kind of like I did here. And we'll catch up next week. We'll catch up next time. It's not promise anything we may not be able to deliver, but we'll catch up next time, and we'll talk about these episodes.
Sounds good.
Jay, thank you so much. I'm having a blast. Thank you, everybody who joined us. Cameron, Jamie. I think Cole bailed out. I think Cole's mad we're doing Lost. I think he's one of those haters.
Oh, is he?
I think he might be, based on the comments I saw him writing, but that's fine. That's fine. Not everybody has to like everything. He's wrong, of course, but that's okay. Thank you for joining, and then if you're watching this in the future, thank you for watching. Please write questions in the chat. I keep an eye on that. I'll be happy to answer. And as we go forward, if you have questions about the episodes that we're watching or what we talked about the week previous, please submit questions in the chat or write them in the comments on YouTube. Happy to get to them. Would love to make this as interactive as we can be. Anyway, have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you next time.